I was 14 the day my world imploded. It was my little brother Mikey's 11th birthday, and I'd saved up to get him the Lego Star Wars set he'd been drooling over for years. Our parents didn't really believe in celebrating birthdays, typical strict Asian household stuff, so I always made sure his felt special. I got home from school, buzzing with excitement, and ran straight to his room, but it was empty. No shoes, no backpack, the bed perfectly made. I figured maybe our parents had broken character and taken him out for once. But when they came home at 5 and I asked where Mikey was, their faces dropped. What followed was a blur of missing posters, police reports, news interviews, and neighborhood searches. Donations poured in, tens of thousands of dollars, but I didn't care about the money. I just wanted my little brother back. 3 weeks after his disappearance, I heard my parents whispering in the kitchen. I crept downstairs and heard my mom, almost cheerful, say, "Don't get me wrong, I love Mikey, but I'm glad we don't have to worry about money anymore." My dad agreed. I lost it, screamed at them. My mom told me to shut the F up and claimed they were hurting too, but I saw it clearly then. They weren't grieving, they were cashing in. I broke down, sobbing. My dad carried me to bed like I was a toddler again, but I couldn't even look at him. A few days later, my mom posted about a new foundation in Mikey's name. Not more search posts. This was a child abduction awareness charity. Within weeks, both of them quit their jobs and went full-time into promoting it. They got media gigs, merchandise, speaking engagements. I was drowning in grief, and they were surfing on it. Every time I tried to talk about Mikey, they brushed me off. When I asked for therapy, they told me to man up. So I created my own rituals. Every Wednesday, Mikey's favorite day, I'd read our old Skype chats and watch videos of us playing. Every 27th, the day he vanished, I'd visit his favorite spots with the Lego set I never got to give him. I refused to let myself forget. Then, on what would have been his 13th birthday, I got a strange voicemail. Muffled noise, then Mikey's voice, clear as day, saying Walnut Street. I stole my mom's credit card, got in an Uber, and rode 2 hours to the only place I knew on Walnut Street, my aunt's cabin. And there it was, our family car in the driveway. I peeked through the window. My dad was making ramen, Mikey's favorite. Then I saw it, a rope coming out of the floor, a trap door. My dad opened it and handed a bowl down. 2 small hands reached out, pale, skinny, but unmistakably Mikey's. Same birthmark on the right thumb. I filmed it, my hands shaking. When my dad looked toward the window, I ducked and nearly passed out from fear. As soon as he left in the car, I broke in using the spare key still hidden in the fake rock by the gnome. I crept to the trap door, whispering Mikey's name. No answer. I opened it and climbed down. He was there, alive, skin and bones, but alive. "Ryan," he whispered. I hugged him so hard I nearly knocked us both over. He told me they'd kept him there the whole time. Dad said it was for the family, that they needed money. Said if Mikey tried to leave, they'd come for me next. I felt sick. We packed a bag and snuck out. Mikey led us through the woods. He said Dad would always return via the road. Smart kid, but we got lost. After hours of wandering, we circled back to the cabin. I nearly screamed. Before we could retreat, headlights. Our mom. We hid and listened as our parents argued on the porch. About money, the charity, the fallout. Not once did they say Mikey's name with concern, just panic over their image. Then Mikey stepped on a twig. They heard it. Dad came toward the trees with a flashlight. We froze. The light swept over us. I held my breath so long I almost passed out. Eventually, they went inside. We fled again, using what was left of my phone battery for light. As the sun rose, we stumbled into a gas station in a nearby town, just in time to see a police car pull in. Panicked, we ducked behind a dumpster. Then I saw him, Mr. Chen, my old history teacher. I ran to him, breathless, begging him to help. He didn't believe me at first, until he saw Mikey. Then everything changed. He took us to his sister, Elaine, a lawyer. She believed us, especially after I showed her the video. She contacted Child Protection Services immediately. Just as we started to feel safe, our parents showed up at Elaine's house. Somehow they'd found us. They tried to push their way in, claiming we were confused and manipulated. I stepped out and told them I had video proof. They cracked, screamed, threatened, tried to force their way in, but the police arrived just in time. Our parents fled, but were caught at the state line a day later. The news exploded. Missing boy found alive. Parents arrested in staged kidnapping scheme. Reporters camped outside our temporary foster home with the Wilsons, but the police kept them away. Aunt Jenny, Dad's younger sister, called from Florida, horrified. She immediately offered to take us in and flew up the next day. I barely remembered her, but Mikey and I clung to her like a life raft. She cried non-stop when she saw us. "I should have known," she kept saying. "I thought they were grieving, but they were just monsters." 2 days later, we were on a plane to Florida. Aunt Jenny lived in a modest apartment, but she converted her office into a bedroom for Mikey and gave up her dining room for me. It wasn't much, but it felt safe. That was all we needed. The first few weeks were hell. Mikey had screaming nightmares almost every night. He flinched if a door slammed, or if he heard footsteps on the stairs. I wasn't much better. I kept checking on him, terrified he'd vanish again. Aunt Jenny got us into therapy immediately, and that started to help, slowly. Then came the trial. Our parents were charged with kidnapping, child abuse, fraud, and a dozen other things I didn't understand. Their lawyers tried to spin some garbage narrative about trauma causing them to break from reality. But when the court saw the video, when they heard my voice shaking as I narrated what I'd seen through that window, it was over. I didn't have to testify in person, thank God. Mikey did, briefly, but they shielded him from having to look at Mom and Dad. Aunt Jenny said he was the bravest kid she'd ever seen. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The verdict came swiftly, guilty, on all counts. Dad got 25 years, Mom got 22. The judge called it one of the most heartless and manipulative schemes he'd seen in decades. I thought I'd feel better after hearing the sentence, but I just felt empty. These were our parents, the people who were supposed to love us. How do you even process that? Aunt Jenny took us out for ice cream after the sentencing. We sat on a boardwalk by the ocean, eating giant sundaes while waves crashed in the distance. "You know," she said softly, "what they did doesn't define you. You two are survivors. That's who you are." Mikey asked if she thought Mom and Dad ever really loved us. Aunt Jenny sighed and said, "Maybe, in a broken, selfish way. But real love doesn't hurt like that. Real love protects." 6 months later, life started to feel almost normal. Mikey made friends at school. I joined the photography club and started gaming with a group of kids who didn't know anything about my past. The nightmares still came, but they were less frequent. We had bad days. Sometimes Mikey would freeze up in small rooms, or I'd wake up in a cold sweat thinking I heard Dad's voice. But we were healing. Mikey's 14th birthday was the first real one he'd had in 3 years. We had a small beach party, just Aunt Jenny, me, and a few of his new friends. A cake shaped like the Millennium Falcon. "I never stopped looking," I told him. "I know. I used to imagine you busting in like Luke Skywalker. And then you did," I laughed. "I don't think I was that cool. You were to me." He looked out at the waves. "Do you think we'll be okay?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about everything. The court stuff still ahead. The nightmares. The empty space where a normal childhood should have been. "Yeah," I said eventually. "I think we will." We carried our stuff to the car. Mikey suddenly took off down the beach, splashing through the water with his arms out like a plane, laughing like a maniac. Just a kid. A normal, goofy kid. Free for the first time in years. And for the first time in just as long, I believed we really might be okay. We settled into a rhythm in Florida. Aunt Jenny became more than just a guardian. She was the parent we'd always needed. She helped with homework, made killer pancakes on weekends, and never treated us like burdens. She just loved us. No strings attached. That was new. Therapy was hard. Mikey hated talking about the cellar, the trap room, as he called it. At first, he'd sit in silence, or just draw pictures of trees and stars. But slowly, the walls came down. One day, he told the therapist about the first time Dad had lowered him into that dark space, saying it was, just for a little while. It never was. As for me, I wrestled with guilt. Guilt for not finding him sooner, for believing he was gone, for not fighting my parents harder. But the therapist reminded me, I was a kid. I'd done more than anyone could have expected. I'd saved him. Eventually, CPS located Aunt Jenny's cousin who lived nearby, and he helped co-sign guardianship papers. It meant Mikey and I wouldn't get shuffled through the system. We were safe and legally protected. Still, it didn't stop the occasional anonymous letters or emails from random people who once idolized our parents and now felt betrayed. One even accused me of lying, saying our parents would never do something like that. I blocked them all. School was a challenge at first. People recognized us from the news, and the stares were unbearable. But Florida kids didn't really know us. They didn't know what we'd come from. That anonymity was a weird kind of blessing. Eventually, we found our people. Kids who didn't ask questions, who just accepted us. A few months after the sentencing, I got a letter from my dad. It was forwarded by CPS, unopened. I hesitated before tearing it open. Inside was this rambling, manipulative mess of half apologies and excuses. I hope one day you understand the pressure we were under. The foundation helped so many people. You have no idea what it took to keep it running. We were doing it for you, for your futures. I burned it. Mikey got one too. He didn't read it, just gave it to Aunt Jenny and said, "I don't want his words in my head." She shredded it. We didn't hear from our mom at all, which somehow hurt more, like she wasn't even going to pretend to be sorry. Around the 1-year mark, things got weird again. It started small. An email from an unfamiliar address asking if Mikey remembered his roots. Then a package arrived at Aunt Jenny's address with no return label. Inside were 2 photo albums, one of me and Mikey growing up, and the other a scrapbook of the fake charity, newspaper clipping, letters from donors, photos of events. A post-it inside read, "This is our legacy. Don't forget." That night, Aunt Jenny called her lawyer. The restraining orders were renewed and expanded. Our parents weren't allowed any contact, direct or indirect. If they tried again, they'd face additional charges. It scared Mikey more than he let on. He started sleeping with a flashlight again. Every time the doorbell rang, he'd freeze. I started carrying pepper spray, not because I thought they'd show up, but because I couldn't shake the fear that they might. Despite everything, we kept moving forward. We had a routine. We had safety. We had each other. One day, Mikey brought home an assignment for school. Write about a personal hero. He chose me, said I saved him, that I was his real family. I cried reading it. Ugly cried. I told him he was the brave one. He survived. Day after day. In that room, he kept hope alive. We were starting to figure things out, finally. And then, out of nowhere, the charity tried to reboot. Someone from the old board reached out online, saying they wanted to restore its image, claimed my parents were misunderstood. They asked if I'd speak on a podcast to give my side. I lost it. I went public instead. I posted the full story online, details, video clips, screenshots. I told the truth from beginning to end, holding nothing back. The post blew up. News outlets picked it up again. People were horrified. The board disbanded overnight. Whatever sympathy anyone had for my parents was gone. That's when the letters stopped. That's when we finally felt peace. It wasn't over. Some days it felt like it never would be, but the worst was behind us, and we'd survived, together. By the time Mikey turned 15, life had begun to feel, if not normal, at least steady. Aunt Jenny had moved us into a bigger place not far from the beach, with separate bedrooms and an actual backyard. It was a modest upgrade, but to us, it felt like a palace. Mikey had gotten taller, still skinny, still awkward, but healthier. He'd even joined the robotics club at school, started smiling more. Sometimes I'd catch him laughing with friends, and for a split second, I'd forget all the darkness we'd lived through. Then it would hit me again, how close we'd come to losing everything. Therapy helped, time helped, but what helped most was us being together. Then, one evening, out of the blue, we got another surprise. I was walking home from work when Aunt Jenny called and said, "Ryan, you need to come home now. Something's happened." My stomach dropped. When I got there, Mikey was on the couch, pale and silent. Aunt Jenny handed me a letter. It had come through the mail slot, addressed to Mikey and Ryan. No return address, no postmark. Inside were 3 words, scrawled in familiar handwriting, "Please forgive us." No signature, but we knew. We sat in silence for a long time. Mikey was the first to speak. "They still think they deserve forgiveness." "They don't," I said. "But I don't want to feel hate forever," he admitted. "I want to stop dreaming about them. I want to let it go." That night, we wrote our own letter. We didn't send it. We didn't need to. It was more like a ritual, our final goodbye. We wrote everything we needed to say, that we were angry, that we didn't forgive them, and that we were moving on without them. We burned it in a metal bowl in the backyard, watched the ashes float into the sky, and just like that, a weight lifted. The next week, I got my acceptance letter to a state university. I was going to major in psychology, wanted to become a counselor someday, maybe help other kids like Mikey. Aunt Jenny cried when she read it. Mikey screamed and tackled me with a hug. "You're going to be the best therapist ever," he said. "You already saved one kid. You make a pretty good case study." I joked. At the end of the summer, we threw a small barbecue, just our friends, our new chosen family. No speeches, no dramatics, just burgers, a fire pit, and laughter. And as I watched Mikey run around with a water gun, shrieking with joy, I realized something important. We were no longer surviving. We were living. We still had scars. We always would. But we had each other, and we were finally free of the past. Our parents might have tried to use Mikey's disappearance to manipulate the world, but in the end, the truth came out. We wrote our own ending, and we're still writing it, every day.